open cathode direct methanol fuel cells or DMFC system. The major contribution in this talk is in this section where I'm going to talk about methanol estimation. And it turns out that methanol estimation needs a good model, which I'm going to show in section 2. And finally, I'm going to show my estimation results in section 4. So let me start with a brief motivation. So here is the direct methanol fuel cell. In fact, there are 40 of them that are stacked together on top of each other. And methanol, which is one of our reactant, enters the stack through the anode side. And there is a methanol sensor which provides a continuous measurement of the concentration of the inlet fuel. Now, once this methanol enters the fuel cell, it participates in an electrochemical reaction to produce electrons. And the two contact points here, they can be used to collect this current and supply this current to power a laptop or any portable device. Now, the methanol, along with the unspent methanol, along with the carbon dioxide produced in the anode reaction, they leaves this fuel cell stack through this port and then enters a gas-liquid separator. Now here we remove all the gas bubbles that were produced and then send the degassed fuel back into the tank. Now this stack acts as a mixer where we replenish the spent fuel from a pure methanol cartridge, and then the fuel cell, and finally the recirculation pump completes the loop by sending the fuel back into the anode. On the cathode side, we have cooling fan which brings in ambient air that not only provides oxygen for the cathode reaction, but also takes away heat from the reaction, heat from the system. That is, it acts as a coolant as well as the oxygen supply. Now here we have three inputs to this system. We can change the fan speed, we can change the injection pump speed, or we can change the amount of current that we draw from the system. Now, this is the methanol sensor that I was talking about. This is a micro Coriolis sensor with an accuracy of 0.1 molar. Please note this number, I'll come back to this later. And these sensors are expensive. If you want to know how expensive this sensor is, they cost $1,000 a piece. And we in our group came to a conclusion that if you want to take this entire fuel cell to the market, we want the cost of this product to be less than $300. So there is a problem here. And we have a solution. And the solution is this blue box. Now this is an inferential or a soft sensor that can predict the concentration of methanol given some measurements. So the way it works is it takes measurements from the actual system and it produces the estimate of the concentration. Now the development and design of this estimator is a three-step process. First of all, we need to have a good model of the system, and nonlinear model is the closest that we can get to the actual system. However, these models are complex and hard to work with. So what we do is, instead of working with the nonlinear model, we simplify this nonlinear model and get linear models. And we use these linear models to develop our estimator. And once our estimator works pretty well on the linear model, we then take it and test it on the nonlinear model. And if it works further well, then we can take it to the DMFC system, the final system. Now, as you have seen that the estimation requires a good model, let's see how we do it. So, for modeling purposes, we divide our entire system into three major subsystems: the tank, the gas-liquid separator, and the fuel cell. And in the interest of time today, I'm going to focus only on the fuel cell. So here is the fuel cell stack from our lab. There are 40 cells in it, and this is a schematic of one such single cell. Now, we can see a serpentine channel, which is the anode flow channel, which allows the flow of the fuel into the cell. And we have these vertical cathode flow channels, which allow air to flow through it. And the black piece in the middle is the membrane electrode assembly, which is sandwiched between two graphite plates. So we divide this fuel cell into three major control volumes: the two flow channels and this rest of the solid part, and which is called as a solid matrix. Now if we take a lateral cross section of this fuel cell and look from the top, we can see all the layers that constitute the membrane electrode assembly. So we have the cross section of the anode flow channel here, we have the cross section of the cathode flow channel here, and then the blue layer in the middle is our polymer electrolyte membrane that separates the anode and the cathode side. The asterisk symbol here is the concentration of methanol in the inlet stream, and our device has to estimate this concentration. So methanol travels from our fuel channel towards the catalyst layer on the anode side and participates in a reaction. However, unfortunately, some of the methanol, instead of reacting, it crosses the membrane and then reaches on the other side and participates in an undesirable reaction on the cathode side. So if our device has to produce a good estimate of this concentration, the model should be able to predict accurately the flow of this, the flux of this, which is called as methanol crossover flux. Now all these fluxes and concentrations that I'm showing here are predicted by a comprehensive mass transport model, which is based on fundamental principles of diffusion, convection, and the model equations are documented in these two articles. Now, this mass transport model is a steady state model. Now let's look at the dynamic side of the model. We have 5 differential equations that describe dynamics in our system in this one single cell. So the first 3 equations come from the energy balance, and the next 2 equations come from the electrochemistry. So these 3 differential equations for the temperature, they describe dynamics of temperatures in the 3 major control volumes. And the 2 differential equations here represent the dynamics of voltage across charged double layers that form across the 2 electrodes. And then we write our kinetics equations for the 2 reactions that are happening in our system using first order Teffel's approximation. And finally, we end up with this polarization curve model, which predicts the voltage across the fuel cell as a function of various operating conditions. Now this completes the model of a single fuel cell. Now, if we write the similar equations for the other control volumes and represent it in a compact fashion, we can represent the entire nonlinear model in with these 2 equations, where x dot is the derivative of state x, where x contains 9 elements in our case. So these 9 elements represent, it means that we have 9 differential equations in our system, out of which I have shown you 5 today. Now F here represents the right hand side of those differential equations. U represents the 3 inputs that I've already discussed, the fan speed, injection pump speed, and the current. And finally, the Y represents the hardware measurements that we take from the system. As you can see, some of the states are already measured. So all the states that are in red are not measured. And most important of all is the concentration, which is not measured. Now, we can simplify this complex nonlinear model into a simple nonlinear model using Taylor series approximation. And the ABCD matrices that we get, they constitute the linear model of our system. So now that we have linear, nonlinear model, let's see how good these models are actually. So I'm going to show you 2 illustrative graphs, one for steady state, one for unsteady state. So this is a steady state model prediction. So here we have methanol crossover current as a function of cell current at various temperatures. All the markers here represent the experimental data, and all the lines represent the model predictions. And as you can see, the model predictions are in good agreement with the experimental data. Now let's go to the unsteady state model, or the dynamic model. So here we show the dynamic response of the anode flow channel temperature to a step change in the airflow rate. Now we can see that the model again predicts the experimental data pretty well. The time constant, the steady state values are in good agreement. So these 2 graphs tell us that our model can predict the behavior of the system with good accuracy. So now that we have some confidence in our model, let's go and see how this model can be exploited for the purpose of estimation. So our objective is to estimate this state x, where one of the state is a concentration, and we need to make sure that the error between the actual state x and the state estimate x hat goes to 0 with all the information that we have. Most important of all is the model information, that is the ABCD matrices. So the first strategy that I considered for design of this estimator is the full order Leuenberger observer. So these are the equations that describe the observer. As you can see, it uses ABCD matrices of the linear model, and there is another matrix L, which is in red color here, which should be chosen by the user. Now the design of this L matrix, if you choose that appropriately, we can make sure that the error between the actual state and the estimated state goes to 0. Now this is a well-established theory, and there are many methods in the literature that which help you find the L matrix. And one of them is the pole placement method. So Now let's divide our state vector into two components. One is known and one is unknown. In the Leuenberger case, in the full order case, we estimated the entire state x. But we already have some of the measurements some of the states are measured already. So what we do is now we develop an estimator that estimates only x2. And this estimator is called as a reduced order observer. The equations of the observer are the same, but just that we estimate only x2. This is important for us because we implement this observer in a microcontroller, and reduced order observer means that we are solving 4 differential equations instead of 9. So we significantly reduce our computational cost. Hence, reduced order observer is of interest to us too. Now, the third and the most important, interesting observer is the proportional integral observer. So in this case, the observer uses the same ABCD matrices of the linear model, but here instead of 1, we have 3 user-given matrices, LP, LA, and LI. So we made our design more complex by adding 2 more additional gains. And if we choose all these gains properly, we can ensure that the error between x and the x hat goes to 0. So these equations don't look familiar, do they? So let me play a trick here by defining a new augmented state beta, which is an augmented vector of x and z, and rewrite my equations in terms of beta. And you can see we get these equations. And these are the exact same equations as that of Leuenberger observer, with just one gain matrix to define. But there is a catch here. This A is a function of LA. The people have been using this observer since the 80s, and unfortunately no paper could present a systematic method to choose this LA. And this forms a significant part of my research, and in my dissertation, one chapter is dedicated to propose a systematic approach to design this gain matrix LA. Now, I'm going to use that theory to get my LA, and once I get my LA, I can use all the standard approaches that are there for Leuenberger observer to design my L bar. And one such method is pole placement. So once we design our observers, we can test these observers on the models in a simulation environment. So let's see the estimation results. So in the first simulation study, I change one of the input, I step it up at 200 seconds, and then step it down at 3000 seconds, and while keeping the other 2 inputs constant. So the reason for doing this simulation study is to push my system to a regime when my linear model is no longer a good approximation of the nonlinear model, and then see whether my observers still work. So what I do is I send my inputs U to the linear model, I collect my measurements Y, I send my U and Y I feed them to my estimator, and where my estimator produces my state estimate or concentration estimate. And as you can see in this graph, all my estimators and my linear model predictions overlap. So this means that all my observers work pretty well on the linear model. And it's not a surprise, because I have designed my observers to work well on the linear model. Now let's see what happens when I implement the same observers on the nonlinear model. So in this case, I'm going to give my inputs to a nonlinear model this time, and collect Y from the nonlinear model, and take Q and Y, feed them to the estimator, and get my C hat. So this blue line here represents my nonlinear model. And when this block is a full state observer, the estimate is represented by the red line, this line. And as you can see, there is a significant bias between the actual model prediction and the estimated value. This is because the Leuenberger observer is not able to adjust to the model mismatch between linear and nonlinear model in this regime. We get the same results when this block is a reduced state observer. However, when this block is a PI observer, my estimate is in very good agreement with my model prediction. This is because of the additional robustness of the integral observer, and the PI observer is able to tolerate my model mismatch, and at the same time is able to predict a good concentration estimate. Now, let me test this theory furthermore by pushing the system further away from my nonlinear regime, my linear regime. That is, I give a bigger step this time, and see whether my theory still works. Again, we have a poor estimate from the full state and the reduced state observers, but my PI observer still works better with a maximum error of 0.01 molar. Now, this is a 10-fold improvement over my actual hardware sensor, which was very expensive. So with this, I can say that my PI observer is robust to model mismatches, and it can produce a good estimate, and hence can be considered as a candidate for the soft sensor. So I want to conclude with two major remarks. One, I propose a systematic approach to model my fuel cell systems. And second, I showed you how these models can be used to design a fast and an accurate concentration sensor. So I tested 3 observers today, and PI observer outperforms the other 2. Moreover, it shows a 10-fold improvement over the actual hardware sensor, so which was very expensive. So I think PI observer can be used for inferential sensor. In future, I'm going to consider the effect of noise, and I'll try to design a more efficient games that can reject these noise too. Thank you very much for your attention.